And we're off. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 47 of the Technology for Good show. My guest on the show today is Greg Chase from Pivotal. Greg, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who or what Pivotal are?
Sure. My name is Greg Chase, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Pivotal Software. We are creating the next platform for innovation with Cloud Foundry, Gemfire, Greenplum, and other significant data and cloud platform as a service technologies. And I'm always happy to be here to talk with Tom Raftery about the latest in technology for good news.
I have no idea what any of that means, Greg. Tell me again, what do Pivotal do? In smaller words.
No problem. So we make stuff for developers and for data guys to create innovative applications for their big companies and based on big data.
So if I'm a developer, what would I use your stuff for?
So we have the Cloud Foundry, what is called a platform as a service, and this is really a operating environment for IT to support and work with developers and give them whatever environment that they want, so they can quickly create applications and important technology services, and then it makes it possible to spin out and scale these applications at very high levels with very high reliability. At the same time, there is also we have technologies such as Gemfire, which are scale-out data services that allow large-scale applications, such as a ticketing application for the entire nation of China to run on their trains, for example. And the Greenplum database, which is really a data scientist's data warehouse, so they can do very advanced predictive analytics on petabytes of data and allow and really provide unique kinds of algorithms and insights that can then be used to either automate discoveries or at least come up with really unique ways to improve business.
Cool. Cool. I should say as well at the outset that this show that we do is going out live, and for anyone who is watching it live and wants to leave any comments, because I know a couple of people have left a couple of comments already, the best way to leave the comments is to drop them in a tweet and tag the tweet with the hashtag #TechForGood, TechForGood, like in the lower third there. So any because there are so many different communications platforms, that's the one I've standardized on. I know people are dropping messages into Facebook at the moment. If you could drop them into the Twitter with Tech for Good as the hashtag, I'll see them there and we'll try and respond to any and all tweets that come along. So we'll head into the stories. Greg, thanks for that. Much better idea now what Pivotal does. So we'll head into the stories. And the first one that I want to bring up, as usual, going into the bad news and just get the bad news out of the way, is this one saying that global warming, and this is on the BBC news site, global warming doubles the risk of extreme weather. So, I mean, for anyone who has been following the show, you will know that these kind of reports are coming out week by week. I generally throw one up every week. The extreme weather in '98 there was linked to La Nina. Extreme weather arising from climate phenomena in the Pacific will get much worse as the world warms, according to climate modeling. Parts of the world would have weather patterns that switch between extremes of wet and dry, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. I mean, like I say, every week we have a story like that, and every week it's always a bit of a downer. And every week it's that the climate's getting worse. It's not getting any better. Storms are becoming more extreme, droughts are becoming longer, floods are becoming greater, rainfall is becoming heavier, snowstorms are becoming heavier as well. It's just global climatic disruption is what Obama's science advisor John Holdren says it should be more accurately called, except that doesn't really trip off the tongue. I think there's not much more really to say about that, Greg, is there? It's just, I think we just let that there and move on to the good news. What do you think?
Well, I was going to say, I don't know why everybody thinks there's global warming. I mean, after all, it's so freaking cold in the East Coast now.
Weather versus climate. Yeah, no, I mean, that's part of the whole thing about global warming is that, yeah, some of the Yeah, global climatic disruption, as I say, global warming, as John Holdren says, global warming is while it is accurate that the climate is warming up, it's more accurate to say that we're getting global climatic disruption. Global warming almost sounds benign, whereas global climatic disruption is more accurate and also tells people what's really happening. So
I mean, maybe it's not going to be so bad. I mean, the Mesozoic wasn't that bad of a period in the Earth's history, was it?
well, you see, when you had those periods, you had millions of years of adaptation.
Yes.
We've had about, depends on when you count it from. If you count it from around 1950, we've had 60 years, 65 years to adapt compared to
There
the
was a
millions of years the planet has
yeah.
had to adapt to changes before.
There was a paper basically I was reading not so long ago, basically saying that humans have pretty much benefited from a very stable climate period in the last 20,000 years, and so we're about to completely upset that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure, we'll be fine and the planet will be fine when it's had about a million years to adjust to the new climate. But you and I aren't going to be around to see that. Anyway, we'll go back to the stories, and there are good news stories. Fortunately, nearly all of them are good news stories. In fact, I think all of them are good news stories. So the first one I saw, which I thought was interesting, is around energy, and the Kraftwerk fuel cell will let you charge your phone with gas. Now, gas in this title refers to the fuel that you use to put into cigarette lighters. Basically, that's what it is. It's that can of kind of butane that you use to put into cigarette lighters. Well, you can now put it into this little fuel cell, and the fuel cell burns it up and generates power to power batteries. So it's an interesting idea. It's a Kickstarter campaign, which opened in early January. It's almost doubled its $500,000 goal.
Wow.
And it's not actually burning the lighter gas. So I shouldn't have said burning. Instead, it's using a chemical reaction to harvest the hydrogen atoms and generate power. So I mean, it's reasonably clean. It charges your phone. It creates about an equivalent of 20,000 milliamp hours, which is pretty phenomenal considering my phone is an iPhone 6 Plus, and the battery in the iPhone 6 Plus is around, I want to say, 3,000 milliamp hours. So I'd get around 7 full charges from that device on the phone. So that's a week of fully charging just from that. Now you have to buy the device first, and then you have to buy the butane. But butane is fairly easy to come across, like I say, and the device. I'm not sure how much the device was, but it's going to be about, I want to say, around $200 for it. On the other hand, I mean, while that is cute and all, batteries like this is a battery I got at a conference I was at. It was Conference Schwag, an IBM conference, roughly this time last year, and it's got USB in and USB out, holds 2100 milliamp hours, 2200 milliamp hours it holds, so it's almost enough to charge the phone fully, and it didn't cost me anything.
That may actually be the future of this particular product after Kickstarter. Is it will turn into the next conference flag, either that, or maybe we'll just all at our booths have butane refills.
We'll keep going because there's not a huge amount of that one. Let's be honest. But the next one is one of a ton of releases that come out every week. Basically, I'm not going to go into it in any great detail. Just to say that every week we see these releases about new aluminium air or new something else or new something else. So battery technologies in general, I think, are making tremendous advances. This particular one, as I say, it's aluminium air. Apparently it's going to be far better than lithium ion. There's a detail there on how it works. It's one of a number of metal air battery technologies like zinc air, and I've seen manganese air as well, or magnesium air. And people are talking about using those not just for the likes of laptops and phones, but they're looking at using them for, electric cars and things like that as well. And we'll be talking about transportation later in the show. But basically, like I say, every week I see 3 or 4 of these stories about how this new thing, could be graphene or something else, is going to change battery technologies. There hasn't been any huge advance come to market really in the last 10 years in cell phone batteries. They've gotten a little bit more efficient, sure, and we've squeezed more of them in. And the main advances in the phones, for example, has been in the electronics rather than the battery technologies themselves. But, here's hoping that the batteries are getting better too.
Well, and I mean, it's not just a matter of, so there's one thing, can you actually fit them into different kinds of wearable devices? And as we see more and more interesting varieties of things like that, that's one area where battery advance will help. But I'm actually really curious about larger scale batteries, because that's where, for example, renewable energy suddenly becomes way more reliable if we can bridge the intermittence of that. And I was conversing with you on things like oil demands. I think good battery technology will just be the end of oil.
There's a lot of things going on there, yeah. I was at a launch in Charlotte late last year of a company called Alevo, and they're a startup in the battery market, at the grid scale battery market. So they're selling megawatt-sized batteries into utilities, and they have an interesting proposition actually. They're not actually selling the batteries. Or they're greatly subsidizing the batteries. They're kind of leasing the batteries, but they're also selling a big data play to the utilities. So the utilities basically sign up for the big data service, and they get free batteries on the back of it. It's a bit like the subsidized mobile phone model. And they crunch enormous amounts of smart grid data for the utility companies, and the utility companies then get these big batteries off the back of it. And it works for the utilities, because the utilities don't want to own batteries. Whereas if they're going for, instead of a large capital outlay, if they go for an operating cost, a continuing operating cost, it works a lot better for them. So I thought that was interesting. And as you rightly say, batteries, for smoothing out the variability of renewable generation, will allow far more renewables to come on the grid, and the grid to therefore become a lot greener, if you want to use that term.
Well, it even makes nuclear power more usable, just because now you can store more during off-peak hours.
Yeah, true. And Michael Koch is saying there in comments on Twitter that he's also seen a lot of the stories about battery technologies, but he's also heard that all of these research projects are years away from large scale, and that's true. That is true. I have to say. The only thing I'd say as against that is that I've been watching these stories for years. So some of them that were years away from production years ago should be coming into production reasonably soon. We hope. And he's gone to say we're going to see lithium-based batteries for much longer before these get replaced with different technology, I've read. And I think that's fair enough. That's a fair enough point, Michael. You're right. We'll have lithium ion with us for a long time yet. But there are significant alternatives coming. So it's one of these things where you go, it's 5 years away, and it stays being 5 years away for the next 15 years, I assume in some cases. But anyway, there's a huge amount of research going on, and graphene as well is being touted, and allotropes of different other allotropes of carbon as well. I saw a different one. It wasn't graphene; it was something else. But anyway, there are several of these coming along. That the material science arm is going gangbusters at the moment as well. So, but the other thing I alluded to was this kind of thing, where ARM, the chip manufacturer, have said that their next generation chip will pave the way for thinner, more power efficient phones. Basically, what they have done with this new chip is they say it can deliver 3 times the computational performance as its previous one, and it uses 75% less power. So right there, the fact that it uses 75% less power means that you don't need as much battery to operate your device. And ARM, of course, licenses technology to Apple, to Samsung, to lots of other mobile phone companies. So, like I said earlier, it's more the electronics in these devices and making these devices more efficient that's giving us longer life as opposed to any great advance in batteries. On the other hand, there's a huge amount of money and research going into battery technologies. So, I think we'll get there. It's just these things take time.
I'm curious when the next advances come out, though. Are we really going to start basically uncorking a significant advance period where you'll see a lot of things coming out in sequence? So whatever the next battery design is that's based on something fundamentally different, it's not going to be very stable. It's going to probably change fairly quickly. The question is this going to cause our devices and the other pieces that have to attach to it and be tuned for it to also have to cycle quickly?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Kind of like when we started hybrid cars, right? Suddenly we all of a sudden had all kinds of new drivetrains coming every 5 years, which is faster than even a typical car model can survive.
True, and we don't really want to be building planned obsolescence into our future. So, yeah, you're right. But on the other hand, I guess it's a tricky balance. If something comes out that's radically more efficient, do you keep your old inefficient device, or do you get a new radically more efficient one? It's always a tough call. Our car is 7 years old, but it's a Prius, and we get I think it's 5 liters per 100 kilometers. I've forgotten what that comes out in miles per gallon, but it's very, very fuel efficient. There's no way I'm changing that anytime soon. Not unless fully electric cars come in at a reasonable price, or I win the lotto.
Getting ahead on your queue here too.
Oh yeah, exactly. We'll be coming up on those soon as well, the electric cars. But before that, there's this story coming out of GE, which I thought was reasonably interesting. So we're looking at a future as well of smart homes, not just smartphones, but connected homes. And I mentioned some of that last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say. We didn't have a show last week because I was traveling. But yeah, two weeks ago we talked about how automated demand response was after being, the software for it has been opened up. And now we see GE planning to make older appliances smart. What they've done is they're sending out 20,000 Wi-Fi modules to let customers of their older refrigerators connect them to their Wink smart home system. So GE have this smart home system based on Wink, and if you want to attach your older devices to it, now there's a way to do it. Now this is very limited, I gotta say, because you have to have a GE refrigerator. It has to have been bought after 2009. So it's not a big impact thing, but it does speak to the fact that homes are starting to become more and more connected. We will see a lot more of this happening in the future. Again, we're at a point where, when do you buy a new device like a refrigerator? When do you buy a new device like an oven or a dishwasher or a washing machine? Any of these kind of things. I'm in a fortunate position that I'm moving home shortly. I've bought a new house. I bought an old house, but it doesn't have any white goods in it. And where I'm living at the moment is a rented apartment. So all the white goods I have are owned by the landlord here. So I'm going to have to go out and buy dishwasher, washing machine, fridge, freezer, the whole thing. So you can bet your life that I'm going to be looking for the smartest possible ones, and the ones that I can future-proof the most. Because
Mhm.
you want to buy them once every 20 years at most. You don't want to be buying them any more often than that.
Well, it's really interesting what you can do with this. I mean, we're hearing, from an application point of view, if you will, what the smart device can learn how to do. But on the back end side for the device maker and also the network provider, similar to that company that was managing batteries as a service for the in exchange for the data usage to the utilities, the same kind of thing actually may end up. Not that I'm saying you get free use of a dishwasher in exchange for GE knowing how often you use it and what cycle you like, but this is a really interesting example of how the Internet of Things is bringing a long tail of service with the what used to be a product. I mean, it's
Yeah.
transforming industries everywhere, and GE is actually on the forefront of this. I mean, for example, did you know that they rent jet engines by the hour? uh, uh,
Yeah.
uh, on the large for the large airliners, and that's
That's
just
right.
really kind of interesting to think of it that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's with all these sensors, and I also recall reading something that one of those jet engines, by the way, they log everything on their trip with a whole bunch of sensors, and then the download of that is somewhere around 2 GB per
Yeah.
trip, and
Yeah.
all that goes into big data crunching systems similar to what Pivotal sells.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, no, no, there's loads of that. I mean, I've talked before about the in-home appliances and having those connected up in a smart home situation, and then using things like the automated demand response so that utilities can uh, allow you to sign up for a service which is lower cost on the basis that your devices are intelligent and they respond to supply and demand signals from the grid. So at times of high demand, your devices then ramp down. So for example, obviously it's not going to affect your cooking, for example, no way, or your TV. It might affect your aircon, but other things like if you have an electric water heater or if you have a fridge freezer, you're not going to care when the fridge freezer sucks in the energy, as long as because these are well insulated devices. And similarly with water heaters as well. Again, well insulated. You don't care when they suck in the energy to heat the water. They can suck it in at nighttime when there's low demand and then let the temperature drift a little during the day. You'll have hot water because it's well insulated, and they go off grid, if you want to put it that way, during the day when there's high demand for energy. So there's lots of these movable loads in home, and as we start making our homes smarter, then we start greatly matching our consumption to the supply curve, which is the most important thing, because there are times when there's excesses of energy, and if we can actually start consuming at those times with our electric cars or our water heaters or fridges and freezers and those kind of things, then suddenly we start to flatten the curve, and that makes it easier to bring on more renewables, which, like we say, are variable generators. The solar doesn't suffer from that as much as wind. Solar typically generates most during the day when there's most demand, but wind generates most at night because wind tends to blow stronger at night, and that's when you don't want it because that's when demand is at its lowest. But as we start to shift demand, we might see those kind of things change.
Well, and even things like electric cars themselves shift demand, right? You have to charge them, and you're probably going to be charging them at night.
Correct. Yeah.
Except
Yeah.
for those that have free charging at work, and so they charge during the day.
Exactly. Exactly. The, I mean, we're speaking about connected homes and Internet of Things, but I saw this story and things getting more efficient as well. I saw this story during the week about the Raspberry Pi, and I don't know, have you played with one of these little Raspberry Pi devices?
I have not, but I have a good friend and former colleague who loves his Raspberry Pis, and has he has retrofitted smartness into his home just from all the things he's doing with this.
Is that
I think
Craig?
you're kind of doing the same too, aren't you?
I'm messing around with them. I have one here. That this is the B plus Raspberry Pi, and I've been playing with that and playing with it with the boys as well, my kids, introducing them to it. I have an Arduino as well, so it's incredible to see that in the very short time since I bought the B plus a couple of months ago, that this new Pi 2 board, which again is selling for $35. It's what do they say? 6 times faster and using half the power. No, 6 times faster. It gets 6 times. Sorry, blah, 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 start again. It gets 6 times the power, so it's 6 times more powerful, and it has twice the memory and still costs $35. And it has a tiny energy footprint as well. You can basically you can power it off USB. There's a USB in just there, so you can see it there. So it runs off USB and outputs to, you've got a HDMI output, so it'll power any HDMI monitor, or you can use it headless. Just plug it into power and program it using a command line. So really, really fun things, and the software that you can get for them. Oh, that's something else actually. I forgot to mention. Well, the software you can get for this one, for example, allows you to run Minecraft, which is always good.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There's the hooking for the kids.
I know some kids will want that on their Christmas list now.
Exactly. And the new one that's coming out, Microsoft announced that they'd be releasing a version of Windows 10 free for it. The only thing you have to do, so for some developers it's great. For anyone who's in the Windows development world, it's great. And the only thing you have to do to qualify to get it is be a Windows developer. That's free. You just go over to the Windows development site and sign a form, and you're a Windows developer.
Wow. Hey, I should become a Windows developer too.
There you go.
I'll put it on my business card. No, Raspberry Pis are just the coolest thing, and especially with a lot of the really interesting other alternatives to Raspberry Pi that are coming out, along with different connectors and kind of different ways of really distributing this smart technology. And here, I thought when I was a kid, I was cool because I made a radio out of a kit.
Oh wow!
AM
Good.
radio.
Nice.
Yeah. So
nice.
Definitely, the kids these days, not only can they make an amazing smart appliance, but then they can go play Minecraft on it.
Exactly. I mean, how cool is it to say that you can? I mean, even if you just think about it, you're getting a computer for $35. I mean, that's mind blowing. Think of the use that schools can put that to, or developing countries. I mean, it's just amazing. And start stacking them. And soon you've got say you buy 100 of them, and you can figure out how to mesh compute or grid compute with them.
Colleague who is working on trying to make a cluster of raspberries as a demo for serving some high-end scale-out software, and it's been kind of interesting watching him do that. Now, granted, this is in-memory computing, so it wants really big memory modules, which even with 2x the memory, a Raspberry Pi is still a little bit shy, but a lot of really interesting applications for that.
Yeah.
I wonder when we're going to be worrying about security about Raspberry Pis, though.
Well, it's running Linux, unless you get the Windows version. It's running a version of Windows. Sorry, Linux or Windows. But I thought this one was interesting during the week. Changing topic for a second into a bit of education. So for anyone who's into Apple programming, and I saw a story during the week that I think the uptake of iOS 8 on Apple devices is now at over 70%. I think it was 72% or something in the headline. And that's significant because when you look at the uptake of Android's 5, it's only at like 1% of the devices in the market. So for anyone who's developing, they have to develop for a load of not just form factors with Android, but a load of different operating systems as well, whereas it's a lot more uniform and easy to develop for. You'd have to think on iOS. I haven't done it, so I don't know. I'm speaking hypothetically. But anyway, Stanford, the university, are putting up their Swift programming language on iTunes University. So iTunes University is this free university courses that are available through iTunes on Windows or Mac. And there's a huge number of courses in there. I was going through it the other day. You've got everything from the life sciences to the mathematics, and there is this Stanford course on Swift programming, and Swift is the language that you use if you are programming for iOS devices, for iOS 8 and more now. So, I mean, you know, it's Stanford lectures. Stanford's a great university. Got a tremendous name. The prerequisites are you have to know C. You have to know how to program in C to take the course. But you know, that's kind of par for the course anyway for programming for something like this. But it's totally free, and all the courses in iTunes U are free, like Coursera and a lot of the others as well. Udacity charges. There was another one whose name just got out of my head. Something like Linda. Anyway, I'm doing a course at the moment on OR programming, for example, in Coursera, completely free, and it's really, really good. So, you know, these kinds of free courses now, they're incredible. They really are really, really good.
You know, and maybe it's time to remake the MPORG system a little bit, which granted is hopefully going to disrupt the university systems, which are just, at least in the United States anyway, way too expensive for the value that they provide. And you know, one of the faults people have had with MPORG kind of approaches is the fact that you have to be this incredibly self-driven robot to get them done on a timely fashion and then test and do well. Because for a lot of people, it's the interaction and a Socratic method rather than just consuming PowerPoint that makes them learn better. So maybe the trick to that is you organize local groups with TAs using this basic information. You should be able to then create a kind of a distributed university system, is the best way to think of it, for a much lower cost, but as good or maybe even better experience than the giant lecture halls that you know.
Absolutely, and even just my own experience of doing Coursera courses, they're really, really good. I did one last month on data science tools. Like I say, I'm doing OR programming one at the moment. I did one last year on data science as well, and I can't remember how many, but there was something like 60,000 people doing the course at the same time as me last year when I did the course, and the numbers are only going up. You know, it's phenomenal. Some of the courses are easier than others. The OR programming one is a bit challenging. I was never good at maths, but the data science toolbox one was a breeze. I flew through that. It was really, really good, but really interesting as well. Michael Koch has left another comment in there saying there's a cool book available for programming in Minecraft on Raspberry Pi, and he's linked to it in the tweet.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know I have a friend whose kid's career will be decided from that link. Thank you, Michael. She will thank me later. Actually, no, she'll be like, "Oh my God, you just turned him into a professional Minecrafter." But I'm sure he'll find a way to make money out of it.
I must look into it myself. My own kids are huge into Minecraft as well.
You know, Linden Labs back in the old, not so, you know, fairly long ago, and their whole virtual reality thing. They got to figure out how to incorporate Minecraft in that. And I think they can have a whole resurgence of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a good idea. I just think, I don't know. It never took off, really, did it? It was an interesting project. But it was hard to build a business around it, I guess, and required too much immersion.
Yes.
Without.
There was an amazing number of people who had way too much time on their hands.
Yeah.
That was before we even understood about addictive experiences.
Maybe they were addressing the wrong market. maybe it should have been 10-year-olds rather than us 30, 40, 50-year-olds that they were looking at. So, pivotal philanthropy. This is your story, Greg. Go on.
Yep.
Talk to us about this.
So this is a really cool story. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with a organization called Girls Who Code. You can get a basic idea of just from the name of what they're doing. They're trying to encourage girls to go into computer science and engineering related jobs. So Pivotal worked with Girls Who Code to help a couple students build out an application. What's in this particular case, these are girls who wanted to um, educate people about talking about feminine hygiene issues. So they made this game called Tampon Run to bring the topics of tampons and menstruation, things that are that people just don't normally talk about. Just bring them front and center and put it in your face in an arcade style game, kind of a cool retro game. So working with Pivotal Labs, which is Pivotal's famous Agile Development Consulting Group, we have finally managed to help them get their app into a mobile version available on the iOS App Store.
And I got a high score.
Congratulations. Well, what's that? It's kind of blurring out here. What'd you get?
So let's see if we can we see it at all? There we go.
33, dang, wow, that's amazing. I played enough that I figured out that you don't want to always shoot your tampon. A lot of times you want to just jump over the bad guys.
That's right.
And it will last a little bit longer, and there's a way I think you can recharge the tampons, right?
You can, yeah, there are boxes, so if you jump up and grab a box, you get a
Got
refill.
it, okay. Yeah, I think I made it to 12 or 13 when I was trying to play it last night, and I have to admit I was playing the web version. I didn't download it and play it on my phone yet.
So Karin Tillotson, who's watching us there, is making a comment about boys and Minecraft, and she's giving us a winky emoticon. But you were talking about a girl who likes playing.
Well, I think it's good for boys to play this game. Is really, I think, there's the point.
No. Sorry, Karin was talking about Minecraft and boys. Where I was saying that you were talking about a girl you know who plays Minecraft a lot.
Well, no, actually, she's the mother of a boy who actually builds really interesting and amazing things in Minecraft. But I think girls who do Minecraft should be encouraged as well.
Oh, absolutely. But the game that these girls built, it's called Tampon Run, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's available on the App Store. So
yes.
Excellent stuff. That's really cool.
It's a neat mix, by the way, of not only giving the girls an interest in coding something, but actually also using, giving them experience about using a gamification, if you will, as an educational and teaching approach. So there was a lot of really cool things kind of wrapped up into that story. So that's why I was happy to share it.
Good. So the next story, and we're going to run through a couple of these because they're semi-related, is the Apple Watch is due to start shipping in April, and you can read the article itself. All the links are in the first comment I put on the event page there. So anyone wants them, all links to all the articles are there. So this article talks about the Apple Watch, how cool it's going to be, how Tim Cook can't take it off, he can't do without it, he loves it, blah 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 blah. But there's a lot more than that in this whole ecosystem. So Swatch, who denied for a long time that they were going to get into smartwatches, are now saying they're going to get into smartwatches, and they're going to launch around the same time as Apple, try and steal some of Apple's thunder. There's Tesla are making, so you can see here, this is a Tesla app for the iWatch, for the Apple Watch. The Apple have released the programming infrastructure for programming for the watch, so people can now start creating apps for it. There's another couple of stories as well, but I'll stop there for just now. I know some people are skeptical about whether smartwatches will take off or not. I'm not. I don't just think they will take off. I think they are the future of watches. I think all watches will become smart, and I think old analog watches will go the way of the CRT TV. It'll take longer for some watch companies to move to smartwatches than others. Some will have more functionality than others, but eventually all watches will go this way.
What's the possibility that a smartwatch is going to disrupt our smartphone? Because right now, the reason I don't wear a watch is because I take my phone out of my pocket to look at the time. So now, if it's all the functionality is there on my wrist, I don't need to go digging for my phone or losing it.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen for a while yet, for a couple of reasons. A, you have a massive screen on your phone, or the potential for. B, you've got a lot more compute power on your phone. So what I think the watches will be is they will be a small screen remote viewer for a lot of the stuff that's happening on your phone. So the analogy, and I've used this analogy before, is if you think of fob watches, the old fob watches that everyone used to have back in the late 19th century. They were disrupted by wristwatches. So with a fob watch, you had it in your pocket, you took it out, you flipped open the thing, and you looked at the time, you closed it, put it back in your pocket. That was disrupted by the massively more useful wristwatch, where you just lifted up your wrist and looked at the time. Then the wristwatches were disrupted by phones, and everyone stopped using wristwatches, or a lot of people did. I know I didn't use a wristwatch for years, because you had the time on your phone. All you had to do was take the phone out of your pocket and take a look at it.
Which you're going to do anyway, because you're compulsively addicted to social media.
Exactly. But now that's going to be disrupted again by the smartwatch. You don't have to put your hand in your pocket and dig out the phone and light up the screen to see what time it is, because now you can just look at your watch, your smartwatch, which will give you your notifications, whatever. I know for me, on my phone, I have most of the notifications turned off. Because if I left them on for every email I got, the phone would just be lighting up every 2 seconds. But for important ones, I have them left on, and I think that would be the same with the watch. As long as there's granularity there, and I know on the iWatch there is, and I think on the Android ones as well there will be, or there is.
So what would make me really be excited to have a smartwatch, though, is if they really are smart and have some context behind them, and because I like to pay attention to a lot of the latest kind of application design discussions, and right now your phone, the tuning on your phone and the tuning on your computer are perfectly tuned to interrupt whatever it is you're doing, to tell you that there's a mail, there's a tweet, there's a this, there's a that. If you look at the settings on your iPhone, you have how many different settings of different kinds of banners to show up at this point or that point.
Yep.
What if we can get out of the interrupting what you're doing business and make the thing just smart enough to just proactively know what it is you should be doing, and really only interrupt you when it really is important?
Yeah, and that's a fair point, and I think a lot of that will have to happen. This is a new space, so if you think back to the first iPhone, the iPhone was just the iPhone 1? I forget what it was called. Yep. The original iPhone.
Just the iPhone.
Yeah. Before they came out with the 3GS, which was significantly better.
And we thought zooming on pictures was cool.
Exactly. There was no App Store. There wasn't even 3G. It was a very, very disruptive device, but it was also very quickly disrupted itself by later versions of itself. And I think the same thing will happen in the phone market. Sorry, not the phone, the smartwatch market. The same thing will happen. The first one will come out. It'll be interesting. It'll be disruptive, particularly for some of the health aspects of it. It's got a heart rate monitor, for example. But I think the smartwatches that we're seeing in 3-4 years' time will be massive improvements on the first Apple Watch that comes out. By the way, we've had a few more comments in the tweet stream. Michael Koch is saying that my 2 girls love Minecraft, and he's saying that to Karim. So there you go, Karim.
So easy for this program to get lost on Minecraft.
There you go. Tammy Paulus has said that she's just remarking and telling people that the teenage coders behind Tampon Run have taken their feminist game to the App Store. So
yeah, I retweeted that. They did. I saw that article. It's actually a really nice deep dive into what exactly they were doing and who these girls are. And I think it's just awesome to make them famous along with their game.
Exactly. And the last one, that one's just been retweeted by Gary Barnett as well. The last one, a Swatch smartwatch. Now, that's something to look forward to. We'll see. I mean, I think with any of these things, it's going to be a we'll see thing. Like I say, I think the first round of smartwatches that comes out will be very basic, and will need a a bit of adjustment. Michael saying, I just can't get excited about smartwatches at the moment. I can understand that. There was a lot of skepticism as well about smartphones at the beginning, but that changed very quickly. This Fitbit Force that I have, it's a watch. It's a fitness tracker as well. I've been using it a lot to keep track of my exercise over the last year since I had the operation on my ankle, and I've been monitoring the constant increase in the number of steps I take per month, that kind of thing. It's also a notification device. When my phone rings, it lights up as well and tells me who's calling.
Out of curiosity, have you heard the number of sensors on an Apple Watch?
I haven't.
That would be an interesting thing to know, because I mean, basically, this is yet another data collection device that's connected to the internet that you're strapping to yourself, and somebody in the cloud somewhere is now getting all of these. Where are you walking? What's your speed? What direction is your arm pointing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think to hack in and get that kind of information would not be trivial.
It's not a hack concern per se from your device. It is being collected and logged somewhere, and it might even be yours. You might even be allowed to look at it. I mean, that's how I think. I mean, that's the interesting part of all of this. Wearables meets the Internet of Things meets big data is what happens to all this data, and who owns it, and who gets the right, and what do they figure out about you, and wouldn't it be nice if you could know what they know about you, and or maybe even have some rights to participate or say what they can do with the stuff they collect about you.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I mean, we'll be talking a little later, just checking the time there, we've 15 minutes left. We'll be talking a little bit later about Apple Health as well, which takes it to and Google Fit and Samsung's equivalent, which takes it to a whole nother level. But if we think as well about this story that published during the week as well, about how Uber's autonomous cars will destroy 10 million jobs and reshape the economy. I mean, it's a bit of an overstatement and a bit of a clickbait headline.
Yeah.
But when you read the article, I mean, there's a lot of things in there that you would not have considered. So this is a long article. I'll start off by saying that, and they have the Uber logo on a Google autonomous car, which and saying that's what an Uber Google car might look like. But there's a lot of interesting points in this piece, and I would advise people to go and read it, because one of the first things I say is that, and there's a lot of data in this post.
It was really well done. That's why I thought I would bring it to your attention. So.
Yeah. So I mean, they talk about how the Uber drivers get something like 70% of the revenue from every drive. So right there, or 75%, there it is, 75% of every fare the drivers take home. So right there's an incentive for Uber to get rid of the drivers. That's it. I mean, it sounds horrible, but autonomous cars, I mean, there's a huge economic reason right there for Uber to jump on this, and anyone else as well. They're going to what was it? They talk about Zipcar. Zipcar is the ride-sharing one, but they say it's now more economical to use a ride-sharing service if you live in a city and you drive less than 10,000 miles per year. So, owning a car, it costs about $9,000 a year, apparently. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'd say it's more here in Europe, considering the fuel and insurance costs are higher here. So, do you really want or need to own a car? If you could have, an autonomous ride-share system, Zipcar or Uber with autonomous vehicles, wouldn't that be incredible? And then it goes on to, talk about how a fleet of just 9,000 autonomous cars, according to a Columbia University study, they could replace every single taxi in New York City, with just 9,000 autonomous cars. And when you stop and think about that for a second, how many taxis would that take out of the fleet, and how much traffic would that take off the road? Passengers would wait apparently an average of 36 seconds, and they would pay 50 cent US cent per mile for their journeys.
Well, and more importantly than take the taxis out of New York, hopefully they would take all the private cars out of New York,
Yeah,
which would make both these and the taxis more efficient.
exactly, exactly. And then there's a number of other things under fallout here. PricewaterhouseCoopers predicts that the number of vehicles would be reduced by 99%. I mean, even if that's a gross overestimation, the fleet at the moment is 245 million. If that fell to 100 million, that would be a huge, huge fall. It doesn't just affect them. You've got ancillary industries like the 198 billion automobile insurance market, which will take an enormous hit from this. The automotive finance market will take a huge hit from this. The parking industry will take a huge hit from this.
Let's see. So you're telling me that if we do this, so all of a sudden we don't need to deal with the auto insurance people. Suddenly we don't need to worry about car payments. By parking industry, not just dealing with the parking attendants, but parking tickets, I would presume would come with that as well.
Yeah.
So far, I'm getting sold on this idea.
Exactly. The automotive aftermarket as well. So second-hand cars. I mean, if people aren't owning cars, they won't want to own a second-hand car, obviously. So that'll all go away. You'll see the obsolescence of the rental car company, public transportation systems, parking and speeding tickets. I mean, as I say, anyone should go and read this. And they quote Morgan Stanley, estimating that you get a 90% reduction in crashes, saving 30,000 lives, preventing 2.1 million injuries annually. Driverless cars don't need to park, and vehicles cruising the streets looking for parking spots account for 30% of city traffic.
Yeah, I read something not so long ago that driverless cars, they've driven enough now at the Google cars have, that they've only had 2 accidents, and those were caused by the other human driver.
Yeah.
So they really are, and they don't need to be perfect. They only need to be good enough, because humans are pretty fallible drivers.
True. True. I mean, for me, I mean, I don't drive that much because I work out of home, so I don't have a morning commute or anything like that. But if I'm driving, the longest journeys I will do are to places like Malaga, where I'm going, to get on a plane. And if I could get into the car and say, take me to the airport in Malaga, and then whip out my laptop and just start working away on email or something like that, as the car drives me completely safely, and safer than if I was driving myself. No distractions with phones or anything like that, because maybe I'm on the phone. Maybe I'm texting somebody, and the car is taking care of everything else.
And you don't have to go somewhere to drive your car, then wait for the train to take you somewhere.
Exactly.
No, I'm waiting for this day. I don't need to drive anymore.
Exactly.
The only hard part is I think my car may conk out faster than we'll get a self-driving car. So I'm thinking because right now the only thing my car is doing is resting out there. So I'm trying to think, like, what do I make it do to go get a job during the day when it's just doing nothing but hanging out in a parking lot?
Well, I mean, according to that article, the autonomous cars will be, on the road by 2020, I think they said, and I think they said 2025 they'll be the majority of the fleet, and 2030 they'll be, almost the entire fleet.
Okay, it could be a new timeshare industry coming up now too.
Exactly.
Buy a vacation, and buy an amazing car that will go out and get its own job.
So some more of the comments that came in. Tammy Paula says she agrees with Michael Cope. She can't get excited about smartwatches either. And Phil Lone says smartwatches are cool, but only as a second or third watch. He wouldn't trade his Omega. So for the super rich, obviously, it's the Omegas all the way. Whereas us plebs will stick with our Fitbit Force. And Live Ireland, which is an Irish guy, Joe, says, love the iWatch idea, but the design is a bit naff. And that's a matter of taste kind of thing, I think. And watches are very personal devices, so we'll have to see how that goes. The other interesting, going back to the transportation one, the other interesting one that we saw was this speculative plan about maybe Google Google going to compete with Uber with its own on-demand service? And basically, there's speculation there that Google will start a car service. I don't see it. I know I know they have the technology and they've been developing it, but I see it more likely that they license that rather than that they develop the service themselves. I could be wrong. I mean, they've gone out and they've delivered Google Fiber and stuff like that, but it's not really their business.
And my
Um,
thought was it's not something that they would make a big industry. You know what? They still need to kind of prove the self-driving car in a actual use case, an actual deployed people using it, getting benefit out of it. And so imagine what they decided what they were going to do was a self-driving taxi service in New York, but that's all they did was the core of New York City. That probably would work just fine. Thank you very much, and use that to prove it out. And then after that everybody else will adopt their technologies.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's nascent times, I guess. In this, it'll be fascinating to see where it does go. Personally, I don't think that Google are going to roll out a car service. Michael Koch again says the technology behind this is fascinating, but the economic impact and the race to the bottom in terms of costs worries me, and I can see that. I mean, if we're talking about taking 200 billion out of the auto insurance industry, that's a huge hit. But on the other hand, that 200 billion is €1,000 more I have in my pocket every year,
Yep.
not having to shell out for auto insurance. It's another. I don't know how much I spend on putting petrol into the car. I want to say it's about €25 a week. So again, about €1,000 a year, roughly, give or take, on petrol. So again, I would only be paying for rides as and when I need them, which would be far less than the costs. So that if we just call that €2,000 a year that I save, I probably should put that in the bank and save it for a rainy day, but I'm not going to do that.
There's a great video that asks this question about what do we do with all the people that used to be drivers.
Yeah.
And it's called Humans Need Not Apply. And while it sounds doomsday-ish, at the same time, I think it's just fair to actually say, we are in the beginning of profound times. I know we always say that, especially in technology marketing, but we really are. It's not that software is eating the world. It's automatons are going to be eating the world, and humans just will not be needed for a lot of stuff. And this is going to make a big difference.
And that kind of thing is concerning. I can understand that because there are going to be what was the figure, 3 million taxi drivers in the U.S. that will be out of a job.
I think transportation is something like the largest, and transportation and logistics, when you include all the things involved driving stuff, and this is again covered in that video, is the largest employer in the United States.
Yeah,
and it's like 20 million
truck drivers, as you say, logistics, all these kind of people. If they are suddenly made unemployed, that is a concern right there. Because if I'm made unemployed tomorrow, I've got kids that they get hungry from time to time, and I need to put food on the table, and that is, and it's not just the transportation industry, but there are huge numbers of industries that are going to be disrupted by technology in the coming years. So yeah, that is a concern, and I'm not sure how we get around that. What are all these drivers going to do? I just don't know, and that does worry me. But we've gone through massive disruptions before in the in the Industrial Revolution, the agricultural revolutions. Both of those saw enormous numbers of people, in the case of the agricultural revolution, taken off the land, and in the Industrial Revolution, similarly. So we've gone through it before and come out the other side. I think we will of this as well. It's just we're not sure yet what's waiting on the other side.
Well, it'll be interesting, and I mean, I make this point even in a TED talk I did on big data a while back, and that is, there's a lot of really interesting and amazing things to happen, and this can be done for the benefit. We could all be living in the Star Trek future, where all all our basic needs are met, And by the way, that is the interesting part between big data and between the automation that's being possible and the robotics that's being made possible. We literally can meet every single basic need for humans on this planet with the resources we have. I firmly believe that now. It's just, are we now going to make this an abundant future, or are we going to use all this to centralize everything for the benefit of a few? And I think these are the kinds of questions we need to start asking. The technology is amazing. But who are we really going to use this to benefit?
Yeah, it's a good question, and on that front, I wouldn't be optimistic right now, looking at the oligarchies that are ruling a lot of the countries. But we'll get onto back onto more optimistic stuff. Flash is finally going away, thankfully. So YouTube have said now, and they were one of the holdouts. They're saying now that they're going to default to HTML5 for their video as opposed to Flash. And that's great. I can't wait to see the end of Flash. In the last week, there have been, I think, 3 zero-day exploits for Flash that have emerged. So it's an abomination of a product, and the sooner it's killed, the better. And I think that's basically enough said about that. We'll go on to, because we're running out of time as well, we'll go on to another interesting topic that I saw, and that's this plays into your area as well, Greg. BI, business intelligence. So having big data is all very well, but you need something to analyze that big data with, and you get the likes of business intelligence and analytics products which help with that. And so Microsoft had their Power BI product for a while, and it's an interesting product. It's web-based, and they have gone and made it free. So you can sign up for it, get a Power BI account, and it's the article talks a bit about it and talks about how well, the article kind of says it's the bee's knees, and it's not bad. It's not bad, I have to say. I have used it, and it is quite good. I wouldn't say it's as great as they make out in the article, and the article does miss out on a couple of things. I mean, they're comparing it to IBM's Watson, and I think that's a bit of a stretch, for example, because it's nothing like
First aid kit to a doctor.
Yeah, exactly. But it is quite a good product, and it is free now. One thing that they missed in this article, which I was surprised about, is they missed talking about SAP's Lumira. And SAP's Lumira is a similar product, particularly the SAP Lumira Cloud product, because it's the same basic idea. Lumira Cloud is cloud delivered the same way Microsoft's Power BI is cloud delivered. For now, my session expired. Wonderful. It's always the way, isn't it? The Power BI product is restricted to people with a US address, but that's the only restriction. And they don't check that.
We're not going to ask you how you achieved.
That's it. They don't check it. They don't check it very closely. I think they checked it based on GeoIP, and I happened to have a GeoIP spoofer, so I got in there, got it, no problem.
So you're not really in Europe. You're like you could be next door for all that I know.
Exactly. So the Power BI is nice. It's got a nice interface, and if you compare it to the Lumira one, and I've been logged out of this as well, there's a couple of differences. Lumira, one thing that Lumira gave me a problem with straight away was that a lot of the functionality in Lumira doesn't work in Firefox. The Power BI, on the other hand, has no limitations on whether you're in Firefox or Chrome or Safari.
You know what? I don't work in Firefox either, so.
Right. I generally have 3 browsers open at the same time: Safari, Firefox, and Chrome. And of those, my default is Firefox, and I'll dip in and out of the other 2. I like Firefox a lot. It's got the lower footprint of the 3. And so, for me, just a quick, I didn't do a deep analysis, but a quick analysis of Lumira versus Power BI. Power BI comes out ahead. There's a lot in Lumira. I think if you get the desktop version of it, there's a lot that's not exposed in the cloud version.
And by the way, so
there's no desktop version of Lumira for Mac.
Yeah, you have a comment here from Phil Lowen, who makes the point that this is a fairly simple use case of business analytics using good old-fashioned structured data. It's not really meeting sort of the future big data analytics and enterprise analytics for unstructured data, things like Twitter feeds and the like.
Yeah, if only there were some cloud-delivered service that would help us deal with unstructured data, Phil. I wonder.
At the end of the day, for the average user, it's going to be an application. So what we really need is.
Well, Phil works for a company called Cinerscope, and they do unstructured data and cloud delivered. So.
There you go, Phil. Maybe you got a future
in marketing.
Yes.
So Tammy Paulus is saying that SAP Lumira Cloud works well with Chrome. Well, that's good to know. Michael Cook is signing off because we're at that time. We've only got 2 more stories left, Michael, so you're not missing that much. I'll jump into them quickly. So the first one is this one saying that Twitter has launched group DMs plus video capture and sharing. So that's nice. I tried it out this afternoon. I just went into DM and I DM'd 3 people with 1 DM. So all 3 got it and were able to respond. So that's nice. Basically, it's making Twitter be more like WhatsApp and those kind of group chat apps. So as well as tweeting to the public, and also have private conversations as well.
I've been kind of feeling like Twitter was really not moving ahead very well compared to the other social media platforms. So I'm glad to see them trying to do some interesting stuff again.
No, you're right. I've been finding Twitter of far less use in the last 12 months probably than Facebook. Facebook, I had been avoiding Facebook for the longest time because I found all the value for me was on Twitter, but all the value has shifted in the last 12 months, I would say. To Facebook. I'm getting very little out of Twitter now, and I'm getting a huge amount out of Facebook.
Some of Instagram, the kids are all there, and I hear the user base of Instagram is now larger than Twitter.
Yeah. You see, for me, it's all about capturing intelligence, and I don't see Instagram as being a platform for that. It's a good networking platform, but it's not a good story sharing platform, I think.
It's a good selfie sharing platform.
There you go. So it's interesting to see Twitter going for the chat space. They needed something, as you say. They've got video, built in there as well. I haven't had a chance to try that so I don't know how good that is. But the group DM one anyway seems to work quite well. So, last story, and it's one we touched on earlier. And again, it's an interesting one. This is how Apple's health app has taken an early lead among top hospitals. Now, personally, I think there's a bit of an issue there, and I don't think so. What the story basically says is some of the hospitals in the US are trialing Apple Health, and that's fine. The difficulty is that the market in the US right now is about 50-50 iOS, Android. So no hospital administrator is going to roll out a system that only helps half their patients. Nor will they be able to mandate to their patients that, well, we can't treat you unless you have an iOS device. So what we're going to have to see is standardization around the health applications in Android, Samsung, and iOS. I suspect the way it'll work is there's a thing called the electronic medical record, the EMR, I think it is, in the US. And I suspect what it is that the devices themselves will start exporting to the standard that's already there in the hospitals. And if they do that, then this is not an issue of Apple versus Samsung. It's all just, anything works with the hospital system. And I think that's the way it will have to go.
Out of curiosity, has some of the government regulators that tend to regulate even health records weighed in on these applications yet?
No, not that I know of. But I know that Apple have worked very closely with the FDA, for example, in the development of their health app. They've had lots of meetings with them at a very high level. I assume the others are the same.
I would like to see Apple open source their software there. I think that would be the really best way to address this, and then people can just sort of choose the service.
Or go with open standards. Just create an open standard, and a markup language for health, and have everyone work to it.
Open source is the open standard now.
Yeah, but I don't think there is an open standard for health data. I'm not sure. I don't think there is. If there is, they should all be using it, obviously. But and again, this is something I've said on the show before. If I can, go into the doctor and say, look, here's, a month's data of heart rate, of blood sugar, of whatever other indicators the doctor's interested in, it's far more valuable information potentially than a snapshot that the doctor will get in the office when you go in there.
So Tom, what's really going to happen is the big data cruncher is going to look at that month's data
exactly.
and going to call you on your smartwatch and say, "What's up with your blood sugar? You're not trending the right way."
Absolutely, because the individual doctors themselves, that's absolutely it. The individual doctors themselves, if you give them a month or 3 months or 6 months data on heartbeat, on blood oxygen, on sugars, on all that other stuff, they won't know what to do with it. It'll be you'll be blizzarding them with information. So yes, you need a big data and analytics application to look for exceptions, look for out of tolerance, whatever, the usual kind of things that are being used already every day in an enterprise environment. Just bring it into healthcare.
Yep.
So, okay, that was the last one. We are done. It is 10 past the hour, so we didn't go too far over.
Not too bad. Lots of good stories.
Yeah. Tammy says she learned about group DMs in today's Tech for Good. Excellent. Good to know.
I'm happy to try that out too.
Yeah, no, I like I say, I tried it out already. Because I'm in a couple of WhatsApp groups, I don't know that I'll be migrating people across, but still, for some work-related stuff, it'll be very handy to be able to use group DMs. Okay, that's it for today.
Thanks for having me on.
Greg, thanks a million for coming on, dude. And thanks everyone for your interest. And we'll be back again next week with another show full of, hopefully, interesting stories. Okay, we'll see you all then. Same time next week. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.